People that are what she claims he is just abuse you, just put you down, put you down, put you down until you give up, until you change your perspective on what's real, or you just are so tired of fighting, you just throw your hands up and just give up. Hello. I've never had, I do like more the ballerina bun, but this is in solidarity. I didn't really plan on making a video today, but here are two. Anyways, let's like get right into this one. I pulled up Psychology's Today list of 52, what do they call it? Covert narcissism checklist, which I don't think this is a case of covert narcissism because those who have are around this avoid the spotlight and prefer passive aggressive means of controlling others. I don't think we can say that either of these people avoid the spotlight at all. Both of these people are completely in the spotlight all the time for different reasons. But I am curious because it was a list and I'm curious to kind of see, just go down through it. However, the bigger breakdown, I will use Dr. Ramani's videos to reference to have a moment of food for thought. This whole video is not to diagnose Blake Lively. I'm not a physician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not anything like that. I don't believe in diagnosing people that we do not personally know and on those terms. And we did not go through so many years and so many years of college and education for psychology and so many years of experience. Having said that, that's the disclaimer. We're not here to diagnose her. We're here to ask questions, to get curious. Is there validity? Could there be validity to any of this? Is there something? Who displays? Is Justin, is Blake displaying more of these things that people talk about as far as signs or symptoms of narcissism, et cetera, et cetera? Also, I believe that narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, are separate. So keeping that in mind. But as we all talk about gaslighting, which we started using the term just in our own way to describe manipulation, to describe other things, we have like all these colloquial uses of these pretty serious terms. So keep that all in mind. But this is a food for thought video. Let's get into this. This was sparked by CaseyJKelley's TikTok video that I saw on Sindaroma's Podview channel. And I will link that below. That's the first one that I'll link below. And I don't know, maybe let's get into that one first. So she claims that he might be a victim of this. One of the first things that she points out is her impression that she seems to be love bombing him through the text message exchanges, saying, "We have a common goal. You're going to kill this. You're so amazing. I'm in your corner." And then she also says, and this I feel like is more related to like other, like, well, maybe this too. I don't remember. I have to read that text message. But Casey, what she sees in this is she finds out what he cares about and she starts to kind of use that as a manipulation tool is what she says. Number two, she says narcissists don't know who they are. Again, we're not diagnosing people and I don't know her background in psychology and so forth, so keep that in mind. But this is what she's relaying, her understanding of this topic. There is definitely a talk around that. It's this lack of self-identity. BPD also has that, I feel like, to a much more extent. I think with narcissism, it's more about lack of self-esteem. They feel so insecure, so unworthy. They feel so not good enough that it hurts so much that the psyche needs to like protect against that by becoming and by seeing itself as really good, as amazing, as good enough, but to that extreme. And that's my understanding of so many hours of searching for this topic for so many years. She also claims that they tend to tell you who they are. They don't let you discover who they are. And I thought, I haven't heard this before. And that's an interesting food for thought. It's an interesting point of view. And this one, both sides can take this one, right? Because he doesn't call himself a feminist, but he definitely talks about who he is as a person, what matters to him, and so forth. Is that something like this? I don't know. For her, she talks about, I think this is referring to her calling herself Khaleesi, which I have a big one. There's a big one that's tied to that from Dr. Ramani's one video. They start taking over control, and this is a big red flag which we should keep in mind, because who was consistently taking control more and 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 more? That's all I feel like I have to say about that. And I love that Casey points this out, that she sets this tone of her being the victim. And I don't think she sets that tone for eventually down the road that to come out, because I don't think she thought any of this would come out. However, I think what I saw was like she is trying to set the tone with him over and over and over again. It's like this love bombing, and it's like another word for what I was reading in her text messages that I don't really have at the top of my mind right now, or maybe I don't have at all. But she keeps talking about how she's the victim in all these circumstances, how no one wants to give her credit for. I thought that was so weird. I'm like, wait, whose side are we supposed to be on in this text message? Because how are we supposed to be on her side? Like, and I think that comes from, I have a pretty secure sense of self when it comes to that side. So I'm like, wait, this smells fishy. Alarm, alarm, alarm. People don't talk like this. Secure people don't talk like this. And I'm talking secure as far as like attachment style. But people who, like, this is manipulative. This smells manipulative. So she talks about this like being the victim and how she's always left out. Even though she's been a writer, she hasn't been given credit. And people are constantly undermining her. And we go into the grandiose sense of self and other things relating to that. And yeah, she's always like not appreciated. She's really good, implying, kind of, I guess. Yeah, victim of being overlooked and not being acknowledged for all her talents. Yeah, and it's interesting because Justin gave her exactly that. In videos, there's one particular video where he says she was involved in every aspect. I like how he emphasizes that, now knowing what we know, what we've seen with our own eyes from editors, from producers. It's interesting how, he says that she had input in all aspects of this movie and how it has made it better as a result. He gives her exactly what she wants and needs, and yet she still attacks him. Like, think sometimes I get these moments of like, whoa, hold up. I'm seeing things in a new light. Think of that. Let's say on the surface, he's being so congratulatory of her, so flattering of her, so pro Blake Lively. He's praising her and all this stuff. Let's say on that surface, just so he can get away with like under the surface, putting this media narrative online to like smear her, to make her look bad. Okay, let's go with that scenario for a second. Listen to what he says over and over again. Listen to what she says, too. But listen to what he says. Is that really what's happening? I don't hear that. Okay, my brain just died. I don't remember what I wanted to say. I don't know. Playing on his empathy is what she's interpreting. Pull on his heartstrings, and I mean, she's talking about like narcissism in general, and people empathetic is especially susceptible. One thing, we're all empathetic except for those that are born with like certain inability to have empathy. And also NPD, I think, has lack of empathy that is nurture more than nature as well, to like in a certain way. But yeah, the frog in boiling water, I don't think we see that exactly yet, but it did have a little sense of that, right? Like she starts off with like just like praising him like you're amazing, and and then just more and more and more and more turning up the heat on him, wanting more, requesting more, taking control more, etc. And yeah, getting to the point where they've completely taken over in the power dynamic. And that's why people are like, hold up, just because he was the boss does not mean that he had the power. And you can see this to the point where he's pushed to say she can have 98% of this. And I love that he said 98 and not 100. Like, I'm holding on to that 2%. I don't know what he meant by that. I'm very curious. But yeah, he gave up. What kind of narcissist, abuser, etc., what kind of person like that would do that? And like, again, think about that. Sit and think about that. He lost control of his project. If he was the one in that was doing these tactics and all that stuff, he would have gained control. He would have had held control, remained control, held control. Yeah. Oh gosh. People that are what she claims he is just abuse you, just put you down, put you down, put you down until you give up, until you change your either your perspective on what's real, or you just are so tired of fighting, you just throw your hands up and just give up. And she says also they get you to the point where you're so tired and so beat down that you give them whatever it is they want. The other part, I don't know if she goes into this, I'm getting ahead of myself maybe, but the other part, just so I don't forget, is how she turned everyone against him. Think about that too. He didn't turn everyone against him. If she hadn't turned everyone against him to block him and so forth, would we even have this issue? Probably, maybe, I don't know. But because that wasn't really the backlash, that's not what gave her the backlash from the public. What gave her the backlash was her responses in the interviews, her take on promoting this movie, the marketing strategy that she A, went along with, or B, created. Either way, she didn't pivot away from when she saw that, oh, I'm not doing something right. And that's another big thing is, when has she taken accountability? Tell me when she has taken accountability on anything she has done or said in the past, on any interview or in anything that people have said bad about her, that have called her out on it. And you can say, well, no, rise above it and blah, blah. But there are things that she couldn't and she should have addressed, especially around this time when this movie came out. And that video with Jersey Flaw. I'm sorry if I'm getting your name wrong. I had my one friend say that, well, I would have had also a problem with being said, like, oh, congratulations on your bump. Like, why phrase it like that? Again, if you have body image issues, understandable. And I don't mean to be, it's going to come out so harsh if this is like triggering to you. I really want this to be understood as from the heart that it is. This is why we need to work on ourselves, on healing the parts of us, on healing the traumas that we have, because otherwise we hurt, we attack, we bite and bark like those like dogs in those commercials, or where we've been traumatized and we don't trust, and so we bite and bark people that want to help us, people that are innocent, that they're not saying what we perceive them to say, etc. So it is not okay for you to bite and bark at someone because you have your own issues that you're not dealing with or working on, or even recognizing that you have. But let's say that to the side. She didn't have to come out like, hey, sorry, that was so bad of me. She could have simply come out with a statement saying that was inappropriate of this reporter to say this. She doesn't know about, my body issues. But let's say she doesn't want to say that because she doesn't want to look like she is weak and she has issues, and she is perfect and she is strong and woman. And she could have said a number of things that still she didn't have to like put herself down, but taking accountability for that. And then I think a lot of that bad press, a lot of which was really like YouTubers, TikTokers, all these people, would have not existed if she would have come out and said, hey, like, that was just very personal. That was inappropriate for this reporter to say. I didn't feel comfortable with that. That's all she had to say, and it would have been better. Instead, what? Now we're at lawsuits, scapegoating him for a smearing campaign because of things that she caused. Never forget that part. Yeah, Casey talks about how he was renegated to the basement. The basement sounds like fancy, and maybe the basement was significant. It had significant symbolism, right? Let's just call it what it is. They had to all get off as soon as she got there, be, shunned and exiled, ostracized, probably not, exiled. Yeah, maybe it is ostracized, like away from everyone else, from the main part. Oh my gosh, it's just like, I don't, more that I hear that make people turn against you, like the whole cast. She is saying again about her understanding of narcissism is that they do whatever they need to do to maintain their power, and if the other person is seen as the victim and their victim, even though that was like not really how it started, I don't know, they need to victimize themselves. Like, no, I am actually the victim, which she has the audacity to say about him. Oh my gosh. And she talks about the New York Times article that Blake Lively's team may or may not have contributed to, but it was, releasing the claim that she filed. That was a last ditch attempt or effort to maintain her power and control over Justin, over us, over her image, over just her power. And again, instead of taking accountability, and this is where my understanding of narcissism, they are unable to take accountability. That is like one big, 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 big thing that people talk about is like, okay, people make mistakes, people are not perfect, they can do some nasty things. Good people do bad things. Are they able to take accountability at the end of the day? When has she taken accountability for anything? And again, it doesn't mean that you put yourself down. You can take accountability and not do that. When has she taken accountability? She's deflective. So this is a big, big one, a big video already. But basically, so my understanding of narcissism, again, I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not an expert at this. I am just one of you, that have in the past definitely looked up, is my boyfriend, is my partner, is my ex a narcissist? That's what led me down to attachment theory, and I became an integrated attachment theory coach from Thais Gibson's, what do you call that? Not school. Program, something, whatever. Anyways, doesn't matter. Either way, so I've dived into this, and I thought seeing this video, this TikToker's video, inspired me to go explore this side. So again, this is coming from just my understanding and my knowledge of narcissism, and not so much NPD, but that might like cross over. And again, my understanding includes that those two are different things. So yeah, I'm not diagnosing either Blake or Justin with any of this. We're just exploring. We're getting curious, because as I discovered, I love curiosity over, I put it curiosity over opinions, but I think it's healthy to have opinions just because it's natural and we cannot control not having an opinion or having an opinion. But what we do as a result of having an opinion and what we do with that opinion matters a lot. How open are we, and where is that opinion coming from? Critical thinking and so forth. And how curious do we get about our opinion, and how curious do we get about facts that are presented and things that are presented to us and what we see and all that stuff. So yeah, my understanding of narcissism is that they feel inadequate. Basically, narcissism, again, my understanding of narcissism is that basically there's a belief that they are not worth enough, that they are not good enough. They feel so inadequate, so small, so broken that they cannot face that. The psyche just tries to protect that person from this extreme feeling of unworthiness, this extreme insecurity. And I say to the extreme, like to the extreme. And therefore, they have to inflate themselves. They have to look the best, be the most successful, go up and up and up and up. And not everyone who is goal oriented and, going in that kind of competitive or whatever form is in this, because there's, as we'll cover, there's like a lot of things that go into this, but that's basically kind of like the summary of my understanding of this narcissism world. So Dr. Ramani, I watched a couple or three of her videos, and so from those videos I have some notes, questions, food for thoughts, etc. The first one is, who is deploying or employing these tactics? What's the difference? I feel like those are the same thing. I would say deploying is more accurate, right? Anyways, Dr. Ramani, I believe, she says this over and over again in her videos. If you're asking yourself if you have this or if you are a narcissist, it is unlikely that you are, because you are asking yourself if you are something that's basically going to show you in a negative light. And narcissism cannot handle that. So, and they also kind of lack that self awareness because they're trying to protect themselves from that self awareness, because they feel like they can't do anything about the things. There's inherently something wrong with them that they can't change. Again, this is just my understanding and knowledge over the years of a lot of information on this, but doesn't mean that it is factual. It doesn't mean that it's not factual. Anyways, I'm just relaying what I've heard, what I've understood, etc. The reason that I primarily say this is one, if you think you are, if you think someone is, etc., but also a point that people don't often talk about. But I think it's also relevant to this as far as Justin, like he consistently gets curious about himself, about how he affects others, which is, whoa, such a green flag. Can't believe I said that. And also gets curious about not what he can do better, but about who he is. Why is he the way that he is? What is in him? I remember him talking, I don't know where, but recently I saw, I think a video of him talking about the TEDx talk that people kind of sometimes judge, saying that he had self doubts about that video because even though I think he probably saw it like such an amazing platform and opportunity, and this next part is paraphrased, but basically he didn't feel like he had anything, like he wasn't special at anything, he wasn't talented at anything but questioning himself all the time, getting introspective basically all the time. And it's like, who wants to hear about, that? You could say, well, that's narcissistic, he only thinks about himself. Depends on, I feel like that's a good one where it's like, but in what is the context of that? He's thinking about how he could be better. I don't think that's narcissistic. I don't think that's even selfish. It's that healthy selfishness, because he's also thinking in it, that's like implied that he's not just better for himself in a grandiose kind of sense. Like, I want to be on the top. I want to be seen as the best. He wants to be the best version of himself and not the best person on earth. Okay. Charisma is one that I'm sure people can say goes on both sides. I would even kind of throw a food for thought. Does he have charisma? Because a lot of people are turned off by him. When this started, especially, a lot of people's like, I don't even like him, or I didn't even know him, but now that I see him, I don't like him. He rubs me the wrong way, was the phrase that was consistently used. He looks full of himself, etc. So that doesn't sound like charisma. He comes across as, I say it as very polished. You might say fake. I would argue no. I would argue that exactly because people are turned off by him. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, but maybe he is. Maybe he has that. Sorry. Trying to stretch my arteries a little bit more. The one thing I say here is like, look at the reasons why people like him versus why they like her, and why they don't like him and why they don't like her, but especially why people like him. What does he do that people like, and what does she do that people like? Triangulation. I don't remember where this came from, honestly. I think from this list of Psychology Today. But triangulation is something that I didn't think was in this context relevant. Who triangulated? Well, they both kind of did, but he was like communicating with his team. He had a responsibility, he had bosses, etc. So I would have a hard time calling that triangulation, because he had a responsibility to communicate. And also at one point he probably felt like, I want this to be, in writing, in case something will go off, because this is starting to feel a certain way that it doesn't feel comfortable. It feels like little spidey sense tingling. But she triangulated. I mean, I let's see if I can do the definition of triangulation. In psychology, it's a term used to describe when a person uses threats or exclusion or manipulation. That's not what I learned from Dr. Kirkhanda. Triangulation is bringing someone else in to be on your side as evidence or so forth. And so when I think of triangulation, and I didn't really explain that right either, but when I think of triangulation, I think of her message pulling in Taylor, or even her meeting of pulling in her husband and Taylor, whether it's Taylor Swift, we know it's Taylor Swift now, but because she even confirmed it. But and so she seems to be triangulating people. She triangulated like, oh, hire these other people, hire the people I want, hire the people I want. So she's pulling in, she's triangulating people into this whole thing, whereas he is talking and communicating with his team, with his bosses, etc., etc. He's not pulling in like, well, here, my wife's, got my back. My wife can tell you. Can we put in that into perspective for a second? Like, he didn't invite his wife into these meetings. Why did she invite her husband? Sorry about the interruption. Let's continue. We're kind of halfway through. Control. See Dr. Ramani's video on what happens when they lose control for these kind of notes that I took. Primary dynamics for a narcissist is power, control, and domination. Which one of these people display that? Blake. Continuously being proven. He had control just for the nature of his job. Technically, he had the authority, but it also shows in that video that we saw from the BTS footage, didn't have control on set. She was controlling, she was taking control away from a person she was taking someone's role. So it's different when you have control inherently by your role, and it's versus when you are trying to gain control that you don't have due to your role, you know? And then this was, I think if I would go into details, and I'm sorry that I don't have exactly that right now, but she also mentions, Dr. Ramani mentions, they use the relationship for self-validation. This maybe could be applied to how she was speaking about how she's not been given credit and so forth. And she's seeking validation that she's enough. When she talks about how there's a comment to his workout video that resurfaced as proof that they had or she had a crush on him or whatever. I don't see that at all in that. I'm going to be honest. But I wonder if it is something like this where she says, and also this is definitely like one-upping him, right? Like, oh, amazing. Try doing that pregnant. And it's like, who asked you? Like, okay. Why are you trying to one up this person? No one asked you to one up. No one made this a competition. He didn't make this a competition. What are you talking about? Why are you inserting yourself in that? But it could be seen from her side as banter, as like just trying to build rapport. But considering everything else in the context, I think it was more something like that, where she was either like also trying to get validated, right? Because like, oh yeah, like you have it harder. Yeah, anyway, so forth. But how did he dominate is a question that I had for this point. How did he dominate? I want to know. How was he dominating? Because the cast unfollowed him. He had zero control of his own movie. Like he lost control. He lost any kind of domination. How did he dominate? Sit with that. There's talk about they have this wrath tendency when you slip out of their control. They kind of unleash it on you. I think that's apparent in their responses right now because she's losing control of her image. She's losing control of the public, of her fans, of people. She's losing control like as a whole. So I think that's what we kind of can see as far as this. And you can also argue that this can be applied to the situation itself on her trying to, like with the dailies and so forth, the moment that he was pushing back on her with the dailies, but also I was saying that in reflection also of something that came before that. I forget right now. Anyways. Okay, so let's get into the 7 signs according to Dr. Ramani. Narcissism. The first one she says is like the cornerstone. I think that's the word she used. The big one is a lack of empathy. I don't see any information on this throughout all of these lawsuits, throughout any of the media coverage or the media stuff that we see from either of them in the press. I don't see a lack of empathy, but what I do see is a lot of empathy on Justin when he talks about or to his wife, when he talks to other women, when he talks to other people, to other men. So I see a lot of empathy on his side. You could say it's performative empathy, but I wonder if you're coming from a place wanting to see that, because what I see is genuine empathy. It's genuinely asking questions, wanting to know. You can see body language is proven to be inaccurate or nuanced. There's so many reasons why it's not a very reliable source of reading what someone means, because oftentimes it's reading, like for people who are caught lying, it's not really reading that they're lying, it's reading that they're uncomfortable. And it's like, why are you uncomfortable? And then if you're lying, why are you lying? Body language cannot tell us that. So take this with a grain of salt. But what I hear and what I see from his like facial expression and his voice, his tone of voice and everything, when he's asking questions that I would refer to as empathetic connection, bonding, etc., there I see genuineness. Genuinity? Yeah, sorry, don't have that word. Entitlement is the next one that she mentions. Should deserve special treatment to the detriment of other people. And I thought about the wardrobe calls. Not only did she change everything and cost money and cost, in a way, I don't know if she cost wardrobe jobs, because it's like, well, we don't need these assistants or whatever because she's taking over. I don't know to that extent, but when she was calling them to her penthouse, even though it was 15 minutes away, but the specific is to the detriment of others. It wasn't just, oh, because it's a pain and because it's money, but it was because like these people had a job. They had to, like, it was to a detriment of them. They had to go through busy Manhattan. They had to just change everything for her, to like cater to her. And you can say to that, well, maybe because she had just recently had a child, but this was not, I believe, in like that first month. I think wardrobe maybe starts, she signed on a month and a half or maybe a month into having given birth. So, and I think wardrobe came, I forget when wardrobe came, but I think it was like later, like in February or something. If it was only 15 minutes and she's one person versus like all these other people and the logistics that need to happen to carry all the wardrobe and everything, and she's this one person that she can also bring her child with her and so forth, I would see that as a detriment to others in favor of herself. But also, yeah, like if that was maybe the only thing, okay, it's a preference. I don't know. I would have a hard time. I would not be able to do that. I would not be able to ask people to do that for me. I would just feel so bad. And I think that's a problem too. I think I'm on the extreme. I need to, be a little closer. But yeah. Grandiosity. They talk about a grandiose world, a fantasy version of the world and of themselves, bigger and larger than life. Khaleesi. In that one, I feel like maybe that's like the only one we have. You could argue also the way that she talked about how she's writing, and people don't let her do that. But this is more so like she's Khaleesi. She didn't say like, I don't know. Khaleesi was huge. It was bigger than life. And it was a fantasy world in terms of not just because, dragons, but it was like not real life, I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting a little less detailed with these so far. Superficiality, vanity, appearances, her younger character, her control over her younger character to the detriment of other characteristics is what Dr. Ramani said. So superficiality to the detriment of other characteristics, judging people on superficial things like his nose. I mean, she said, let's take a month, an insurance month, so you can get your nose done. And it wasn't said in that that tone, it wasn't said as a put down, it was said covertly, perhaps. It could have been just a poor joke in poor taste, or it could have been a passive aggressive comment, or I don't know, passive aggressive, but like a covert comment masked as a joke. But as far as like superficiality, she talked about how she's not in shape yet. She talked about pushing the whole schedule back so she can get in better shape. She talked about, which, okay, but like the schedule is dependent on so many people and factors and locations and so forth, and budget and all that, so many limitations. Again, so it's like she comes first, she matters more than others and other things. But also like vanity comments. I don't know, it's just like the wardrobe also popped into my mind as far as this, how she needed to have the wardrobe she wanted in the video that we saw, how she needed to get her shoes, and she needed those shoes. I think those were the $5,000 shoes. I don't know. I wonder if she did that because like Louboutin, I guess that's what they were, gave her like, hey, if you put this, we'll give you money, like product placement basically. And the one thing that stood out to me from the beginning of reading this is trying to control the image of her younger character in terms of, I don't remember how it was said. I can't find it, but it was basically something regarding her trying to control the image of her younger self, as if she couldn't separate that she is not the character. I saw that a lot. Man, I can't find it. It was something with high school and stuff. Anyways, so yeah, to me that was like huge to me. It just was like really popping out to me. Like, why are you controlling the image? To me, that's how it read. Maybe I read into it, but again, this is a whole video about food for thought. Let's just sit with some things. They might not be right or wrong or whatever, but it's like getting curious, sitting with things and seeing them from different angles or from one different angle. Her younger character, Isabella Ferrer, she is 25 years old, I think, now. So she was, I think, 22 or 23 when this project started. Yes, she's young, and yes, it was technically her first movie, but again, she's trying to take over control of other people and the image. And but again, to me, this part sounded a lot more like she cannot differentiate her character from herself. Even the younger version of Lily, she sees it as younger Blake. Maybe it was in her like list of demands or something. Gosh darn it. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know. This is just really frustrating. It's really annoying. They chronically seek admiration. Tell them how wonderful they are. This was again with the, oh, I never get credit. I know, poor me. I'm the victim in all of this. All of these bad directors just use me for their credit, and they never give me credit. You could also argue in the footage that we saw, the line where she's like, oh, I think it's more than that, more than cute. That's seeking validation. Again, that standalone moment is not everything. You need this like to be a pattern. But yeah, that is something. Is he seeking? Because we're kind of supposed to go into all of these, both of these. Entitlement. Does he have entitlement? He's very self-effacing. He seems very humble as far as that. So it doesn't come across like he has entitlement. Does he? Maybe. I don't know. He's very self effacing. And everyone that has met him or worked with him kind of doubles down on that too, which is interesting, right? Grandiosity. Does he have that? Does he live in this like fantasy version of himself? Again, self effacing. It doesn't seem like that. It seems quite the opposite of that. Could it be, again, on the surface versus, he's trying to manipulate? I think it's very dangerous because I think we both undervalue and overvalue our ability to tell when someone is manipulative or lying. But that's also in a very vacuum by yourself with that person thing. I think that's important. Assume that's kind of also in the context of that, because when you have people around both of you or whatever, I mean, it's hard to manipulate and control as a whole everyone, because everyone has different experiences and different spidey senses. So that's the thing. It's like, it's very tempting, and it comes from a place of fear and insecurity in us to say that he is so good at manipulating and pulling the wool over our eyes. I think it's harder than we wanted to do that consistently through like over so many people and over so much time as he has done this. Meanwhile, we see these with her not just on this, we're focusing on this project, but we see it as a pattern in her past as well. Whereas with him, we don't see that. Grandiosity, like a lot of people's like, oh, self image and whatever, but he's talked about body dysmorphia. Body dysmorphia, I don't know that there's the correlation between body dysmorphia in that sense and then narcissism. I don't know. Does he care that much about his appearance? I don't think so. He had that man bun and his hair looked pretty greasy. I don't know, this bugs me because I think it's a Romanian thing and like my family thing. Like greasy hair is such a, like the one of the worst things, physically appearance wise. So it doesn't look like he cares that much. He doesn't look that polished, does he, appearance wise? And he even talked like he had to hire a personal stylist once this movie was coming out and stuff because he has been told that he always wears just the same things over and over again. You know, what else could it be? Superficiality. Is he judging people for. He talks about the inner world of someone a lot and of himself and all that stuff. But we don't know, his internal thoughts as far as judging, but it doesn't seem that way. So again, this one is a weak one for him. Is he chronically seeking admiration? A little bit. He's seeking validation, I would say. I don't know if admiration. He's talked about, like, he wants to be acknowledged as being okay. How many people in public figures, like public life, is everyone a narcissist? No, but seeking validation and admiration alone, standing alone, is not that amazing, and it's not that damning either. But also, again, I think a lot of this is like at the detriment of others as well. But yeah, okay, let's give him this. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say yeah, he chronically seeks admiration. Okay, because he has the podcast, he has this, he has books, let's give him one. It's just for the sake of argument. I don't think that's what it is as far as this, but tendency to rage. Okay, so this one, they are not in good command of their emotions because of the insecurity and frustration, intolerance that they have. A lot of people pointed out, or she pointed out, that look, she was uncomfortable clearly in this video. Not all of the video. I want to look at it again, but I wonder if she was uncomfortable at times when it was like intimate, or uncomfortable at times when she, I hate this phrase, but she didn't get her way. Or like and coming from that insecurity of like, because I think control, again, is coming from that insecurity. Like, I need to be good enough, right? And again, this is all my understanding and opinion. And then, throwing kind of like but I would say that this tendency to rage and not being in control of her emotions came across in Jersty's video. In the moment that she said, "Congratulations on your bump," attack. She said something else, attack, about the wardrobe. Like, how did you feel about the clothes that he got to wear? Because it's a period piece. Attack. She was attacking at certain times in this video too. So this rage, like, I don't know if they would consider, like, people who study narcissism and stuff and diagnose, I don't know if they would consider this with him. How has he demonstrated this? I've not seen him demonstrate. I've seen him be very calm, very in control of his emotions, even when it was frustrating him that she was taking control, that she was questioning his directing, that she was questioning his directing choices. Or I saw him stay in control of his emotions, again, control of himself, not on her, and calm. And that was something that was like striking. I was like, wow, like, he is a better person than a lot of us, because in a lot of these text messages and email exchanges that he provided, we see someone who is very professional, is going through very challenging situations, and he's responding not just professionally, but I would say not in a rage. Arrogance. So this is, I'm better than you. And I believe, like, grounded in that, at times subconscious, deep insecurity. It seems like she has that vibe. Yeah. I don't know. This one, I feel like this one is out there more online, and I'll just leave it for other people to like talk about that because they for sure talk about that. With him, the same thing. A lot of people, I think this one, like a lot of people latched on to on both. Just because you're arrogant doesn't mean you're narcissistic. I like Dr. Ramani has another video of the difference between a toxic person and a narcissistic person. So go into that. Toxic people. Okay. And then she mentioned some others like jealousy, envy, getting pleasure out of people's misery, lying, cheating. We can't really see any of these things except the lying. We see her at least having misleading information and presenting misleading things or things in a misleading way. But we do see gaslighting with her recent statement, and we do see projection. Again, this is my opinion and this is my perspective. This is what I see. But projection, like their faults and flaws are yours, are the other person's. I didn't say that, you said that. And this is something that is constantly in their response. And I also want to like sit with the idea of like, is it projection also what she's doing as far as like, honestly, I have such a hard time understanding, is she actually believing the claims that she has against him, or is she not the smear campaign, which is technically her main claim? That's the reason for the lawsuit that she has. But the claims of SH, does she believe in that? Or is she aware that she's inflating those? I flip flop all the time on this. I can't make my mind up on this. If she believes in those things, is it projection? I would say the nose thing is a projection. That's a clear projection. Again, that alone isn't a huge projection moment, but because she's insecure, people say she has had a nose job. She's definitely very much into physical appearance and stuff, but because she's insecure, she's projecting that he is insecure about the same things and he wants to remedy them, especially in the same way. So that's like I caught that as a projection. Yeah, I don't know. And then gaslighting. The reason that a lot of us are calling her response as a gaslighting is because literally they said this video shows to the letter that her statement in her claim, in her lawsuit or complaint, is to the letter shown in this video. And people are like, literally no, saying things like, what was her responses or her team's response is just like, it's just messing with our minds, and we're just infuriated because it seems like no one hears us. But look at all the people that are all on the same page. The only person that's not hearing us is Blake Lively and her team. Those are the only people. Oh, the gaslighting part is who released what first publicly? Who made this public first? They made this public first. Like I said, I think in my previous video, he didn't leak this complaint. His team didn't leak this complaint to the New York Times. You know, it wasn't a pro Justin move. It was a pro Blake move. So the only people who had to benefit from that was her team, her side. And now they're saying like, oh, look at them. They're just like retaliating because they're defending themselves. They have a right to. Oh, look at them. They're making this public. You made it public. They are just defending themselves. They're responding to you. Yeah. So that's gaslighting, and everyone's calling them out for that. And again, everyone extrapolating. But in this case, it's almost everyone. It's like the reasonable everyone. Like 90+% is quite a everyone. So the DSM has 9 symptoms and signs of the personality disorder, of the narcissistic personality, of NPD. Again, this is a big one. This is definitely something we shouldn't, take a stab to diagnose. But just so you know, special me, the anagram, sense of self-importance, preoccupation with power, beauty, or success, entitled, can only be around people who are important or special, interpersonally exploitative of their own gain. By the way, number 4, Taylor Swift. I'll just drop that. Arrogant, number 6. Lack of empathy, number 7. Must be admired, number 8. Envious of others or believe that others are envious of them. That's number 9. So I just put that out there, but I did have to kind of speak out like, oh, doesn't that sound like she's very cozy with Taylor Swift? And just, yeah. But hey, like, She has her family. I don't know what friends she has. We just see her with Taylor Swift and her friends all the time. But, I don't know. I don't know. The other thing, I think this was from one of Dr. Ramani's video. Are they curious about you? So is Blake showing interest in him? In the text messages that we see, doesn't really ask questions. I don't think if anyone has seen this more one way or another. But yeah, the impression that I've had from the information that I've seen takes over even in conversation, excuse me. And, she talks about in those text messages with like, yeah, this is what we're doing this. And it's great to find someone. There's another projection moment, as competitive, as me, basically, is what she says and all this stuff. It's like, how it didn't sound like he was like that. It sounded like a projection. But yeah, so is it like the Blake show when she's talking? I think also of the bracelet situation and that, people say, oh, this is actual like healthy boundaries. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, that is not an example of a boundary, healthy or unhealthy, really. It kind of looks a little bit like she's concerned with her appearance more than with connecting with this fan and honoring and respecting this fan who was maybe like a little girl or something. I don't know. Who knows? It doesn't go with your outfit. I can't believe whoever made that. I saw it. I don't even know if I saw it on Instagram or YouTube, but I can't believe they said that. They claimed that. That is absolutely not an example of a boundary. And I've learned about boundaries. And I've seen people that are consistently working on learning healthy boundaries. That is not a boundary. That is not an example of a boundary. I can't say that enough times. And so yeah, so I'll link some more. I have like telltale signs video from Dr. Ramani as well. That's a longer one. I'll link those below. Honestly, if you're watching this, if the people who've watched my previous video and if you made it this far, and if you've not made it this far, if you are just at the beginning of this video, whatever, wherever you are, I'm going to put this at the beginning and at the end. Tell me your thoughts on this. Tell me your food for thought. What evidence have you seen pro any of these or against any of these? And that's the thing that I really am so curious about. Like, I want to see some of us really want to see the evidence and proof and receipts, anyone talking badly about Justin in any form. People have come out to talk badly about her. Not just like what things are being posted, but what people say about them. We haven't seen someone say anything bad about him. We've seen people be quiet. We've seen people be quiet literally on both sides. I think people are just like, they just do not want to get involved in this, roped into this. And I think that's smart. And, it's hard because and maybe they feel like, well, I don't even know. Maybe they're questioning like what is real and what is not. Question their previous thoughts or whatever. But I've not heard anyone talk negatively about him except in this context, people that are like, no, he's just not likable. And that's all that I've seen. But as far as like experiences or anything like this, pointing out like I don't know, I've not seen anything even from Blake. Really, I've not seen that, and I think that's what we're also frustrated with in their response. In Blake's side's response is like consistently just pointing the finger back at him instead of providing anything. Okay, you don't want to divulge like a video like this or whatever, but provide something that shows us that what you're saying is what you're saying. I think that's very valid. I think that people do need to provide proof. We cannot just believe, blindly anyone, any kind of gender, any kind of person. And the other thing too is like she had the advantage and she just squandered it. She went too far. But I think a lot of us feel maybe even glad for that because her going too far, which you could argue is a narcissistic thing, they don't know how to stop because she has to have this like clean narrative of herself. You could argue that because of that, we really get to see her. Whereas if she wouldn't have gone this far, people would have thought, oh yeah, maybe he's creepy, maybe she's right, this or that. But the moment that she filed that lawsuit, and even then people were on her side more, and there's a lot more 50-50 and like, oh, this doesn't look bad and he sounds like a creep. were the narratives. And suddenly he comes not just with his words, his interpretation of things, etc., but he's like, here, you make the decision for yourself. Just sit with that. I don't know if anyone watched all of this, but I had a lot of fun in me. I don't even know what Aru has done this whole time, but yeah, I had a lot of fun because it made me put questions and seek questions, get curious about this whole thing, but also about each of them. And it gave me the opportunity and chance to sit with, like, okay, let's examine, where has he shown these traits? Where has she shown these traits? And so yeah, it was very exploratory. So this was like really fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, I never do this because I assume we all know, like or subscribe, comment. Again, I'm very curious your thoughts, your take. Has this changed your mind one way or another? Do you have, any references to something that disproves this, that proves this, that whatever? Yeah, and also just your personal thoughts, because those are valid and we can respectfully share those, right? So that sounded condescending maybe, but that's not what I meant. Like, so yeah, I will talk to you later. This was a big one. I'm very grateful and thankful if you've watched the whole thing or even partially. But if you watched partially, probably don't see this. And yes, and if you did watch all of it, let me know below. Comment, I don't know, something. Even though, like, you could just have skipped this part, but comment whale. All right. Have a wonderful day. Again, this was just food for thought. We're not diagnosing anyone. And I would highly encourage everyone out there to not diagnose these people because we don't know them. There's so many nuances, and we see, honestly, let's be real, we see what they put out there. The only times that we see kind of behind the scenes is in interviews or paparazzi captures or whatever. Even those can be staged, but let's keep that in mind. So this is just getting curious, food for thought moment. All right, and stay curious.